Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alison LaGrange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global south. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alison LaGrange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. The Kremlin says it is working out a date for a new round of peace talks with Ukraine. This after President Volodymyr Zelensky proposed holding them this week. The remarks follow Russia's drone and missile attack on Ukraine earlier today. Syrian authorities evacuate Bedouins from violence-hit Sueda city. This after a ceasefire halted days of deadly sectarian clashes, killing over 1,100 people in the region. Israel strikes Yemen's Hodeidah port, targeting Houthis. Israeli Defense Minister Katz says the military forces struck targets to prevent the restoration of previously attacked terror infrastructure. China's top military body orders a sweeping overhaul in a bid to restore its credibility as the commission faces its largest vacancy in years amid a series of corruption scandals. And Alaska Airlines resumes operations after hours of an IT outage which grounded its fleet. The American air carrier has apologized to the travelers for the disruption. Hello and welcome. Let's start with the latest from the West African nation of Niger, where 2 Indians were killed and 1 has been abducted in a terrorist attack. The Indian embassy in Niger said that it is working with local authorities to ensure a safe release of the kidnapped individual, offering condolences to the families of the victims. The mission added that it is also working on repatriating the mortal remains of the 2 killed in the attack. The Indian embassy said that the incident took place on the 15th of July in the Dosso region in the southwestern Niger. Now, according to local media reports, the incident unfolded as unidentified gunmen attacked an army unit. The troops were guarding a construction site in Dosso at the time of the attack. Dosso is about 130 kilometers away from the capital of Niamey. The abducted victim has been identified as Ranjit Singh. He belongs to Ramban town of Jammu and Kashmir. He worked in a power transmission company in Niger.
उसके बाद कोई फोन नहीं कर दिन का 4-5 बार ही करता था फोन कहना मोदी जी को कहना है बच्चे के बारे में सोचेंगे प्रधानमंत्री कुछ करेंगे तो और कौन करेगा.
One of the deceased has been identified as 39-year-old Ganesh Karmali. He was from the eastern Indian state of Jharkhand. He also worked on a transmission line in Dosso. Now, he was reportedly caught in the crossfire between police and attackers. According to Karmali's family, his brother-in-law also worked at the same site, and he sustained bullet injuries and is currently under police protection in Niger, along with 4 more migrant workers from Jharkhand. The second victim has reportedly been identified as Krishnan. He is believed to be from a southern Indian state. No more information on the second victim has been given as yet. Following the incident, the Indian embassy in Niger issued an advisory for the Indians in the country asking them to remain vigilant. This is not the first time Indians in Niger have come under attack. Foreign nationals are increasingly becoming targets of armed groups in the country. In April, 5 Indian workers were abducted by a group of armed attackers on motorbikes near the Sakora village. Before that, a Swiss woman was kidnapped from her home in Agadez city in northern Niger. In January, an Austrian woman was kidnapped from Agadez, and the 73-year-old had been living in the region for almost 3 decades. Niger is reeling under a security crisis. It has been witnessing increased attacks in the conflict-ridden regions. The situation worsened since the military junta leaders took over in July of 2023. The military regime has been struggling to control insurgency. These terrorists are linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. The violence has impacted most of the Sahel region. Niger is struggling to keep its citizens safe. In such a situation, is it safe for nationals of other countries to go to work and live there? Now, for more on this story, I'm being joined by Ulf Liesing, the head of Sahel program at Konrad Adenauer Foundation from Bamako. Thank you for being with us, Ulf. Now, let's jump right into the questions. What is the current security situation in Niger's Dosso region? And why are foreigners, particularly Indians, becoming targets for armed groups in that area?
Yeah, I'm just back from a trip myself to Niger. I mean, security has worsened since this military coup, like you mentioned in your report, and that area where the Indians got killed, I mean, this is deep in the red zone. I mean, I would never dare travel there. That is next to the border with Burkina Faso. Al-Qaeda is very active. I mean, this is it's really deep in the red zone. You mentioned also the other kidnappings in Agadez in the north. That's again in the red zone. So you have to be extremely vigilant. I mean, the capital is okay. Some other provincial cities. But I mean, that's really an area where the state is very weak. The only explanation why
Ulf, thank you very much for being with us on Firstpost Africa. And moving on, let's turn our attention to the conflict-torn nation of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The country has signed a ceasefire deal with the Rwanda-backed M23 rebels to end the decades-long fighting that has devastated eastern Congo. The deal was signed in Doha on Saturday, following months of Qatari mediation, after talks began in April of this year. Both sides have now signed a declaration of principles, whose terms include a permanent ceasefire. More details on the deal are awaited. The DRC had previously rejected the idea of holding talks with the M23, branding it as a terrorist group. But in April, both sides pledged to work toward a ceasefire. This ceasefire deal follows a separate peace deal that was signed by the Congolese and Rwandan governments in Washington last month. However, one of the main parties in the conflict, that is the M23 representatives, were not a part of this US-brokered peace deal. At the signing of the peace deal in Washington, President Trump had warned of very severe penalties if the deal was violated. Trump's push for peace in the DRC is aimed at accessing the country's vast mineral wealth. The US has welcomed the new declaration of principles between the DRC and the M23 rebels and urged continued discussions to reach a full peace agreement. Following the signing of the deal in Doha, Now, Rwanda thanked Qatar and the United States for mediating the accord. Even the African Union hailed the new agreement as a significant development. So what happens next? According to the declaration, negotiations for a peace agreement are to start no later than the 8th of August. Both sides are expected to finalize a comprehensive peace agreement by their self-imposed deadline of the 18th of August. Since January, the M23 rebels have controlled eastern Congo's largest city, Goma, and have also made gains across North Kivu and South Kivu provinces. The fighting has killed thousands and displaced hundreds of thousands more this year. Several of the DRC's neighbors already have troops deployed in the volatile region. The DRC, the United Nations, and Western powers have accused Rwanda of supporting the M23 by sending troops and arms. However, Rwanda has long denied these accusations, saying its forces are acting in self-defense against the DRC's army and ethnic Hutu fighters linked to the 1994 Rwandan genocide. This is not the first time such a peace agreement has been signed. Such agreements have been made earlier as well, but none could deliver what it promised. However, some of the people still view the latest ceasefire deal with optimism and hope for a better future.
First of all, the Congolese government leaders have taken a step forward, as they had previously taken strong positions on direct talks with the AFCM-23 coalition. But in this declaration, the Congolese government undertakes to enter into direct talks with the M23 to find a peaceful consensus for the peaceful resolution of the root causes of the conflict in the east of the DRC.
The two parties have to put aside their egos, their particular interests, and put the general interest first. The general interest today is peace, nothing but peace.
And that is what it all boils down to for the common public. It's peace. Now it remains to be seen if this time an actual effective peace deal can be signed between DRC and the M23 rebels, or the history of collapsing ceasefire agreements will repeat itself. From the conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo, we now turn our attention to the unrest in Kenya. In the latest, a prominent Kenyan human rights activist has been freed on bail after he was charged with unlawful possession of ammunition over his alleged role in the deadly anti-government protests last month. Now, his name is Boniface Mwangi. He is a former photojournalist and has been at the center of many protests. Police arrested Mwangi on Saturday from his home, accusing him of facilitating terrorist acts during the protest that broke out on the 25th of June. However, Mwangi has not been charged with it. As per the Kenyan police, Mwangi's seized possessions included 2 unused tear gas canisters and 1 7.62mm blank round, along with 2 mobile phones, a laptop and notebooks. Following this, Mwangi denied the allegations made against him, saying that he is not a terrorist. Last month, on the 25th of June, hundreds of Kenyans took to the streets to mark the first anniversary of the anti-tax protests and the death of blogger Albert Ojwang in police custody. This further fueled the public discontent and anger over cost of living crisis, corruption and police brutality. At least 19 people were killed during these protests. And then on the 7th of July, protests flared again, killing at least 31 people. The Kenyan youth is angry, dissatisfied, and demanding answers from President William Ruto's government. And Mwangi's arrest, especially the suggestion that he would face terrorism charges, has further fueled this anger. Mwangi's detention triggered a wave of online condemnation, with the hashtag #FreeBonifaceMwangi going viral. Rights groups also condemned Mwangi's arrest, raising questions over the validity of the search warrant that was used to raid his home. Rights groups have slammed the terrorism allegations against Mwangi as unjustified and labelled it as an abuse of the justice system to crush President William Ruto's critics and to suppress dissent. Mwangi has been arrested multiple times in Kenya. He once ran for parliament on an anti-corruption platform and has been a vocal critic of human rights violations in Kenya and elsewhere. In May, Mwangi and a Ugandan activist, Agatha Atuhaire, were detained in Tanzania. And they had travelled to attend the trial of treason-accused Tanzanian opposition leader Tundu Lissu. Following their release several days later, both said that they had been abducted, tortured and sexually assaulted. They have since filed a case at the Regional East African Court of Justice over the matter. Mwangi's latest arrest is being denounced as full-scale assault on Kenya's democracy, which is already in shambles. Trouble is endlessly mounting for William Ruto, and every attempt to silence dissent is further fueling anger among the Kenyan youth. And moving on to our final story from the East African nation of Tanzania. In a historic milestone, the country's tourism industry has surpassed gold as the leading source of foreign exchange. Now, this means the tourism sector in Tanzania has overtaken gold exports in terms of earnings. The shift was recorded during the East African nation's economic recovery from the pandemic. According to the Bank of Tanzania, tourism generated $3.92 billion in the year ending May of 2025, and this is up from $3.63 billion earned the year before. The earnings placed tourism ahead of gold export revenue. Gold exports earned $3.83 billion in the year ending May. Now, tourism now accounts for over 55% of all service-related earnings. This is due to a surge in international arrivals in Tanzania. The country hosted over 2.17 million international tourists, as opposed to the 1.96 million international arrivals the previous year. This tourism surge is an outcome of Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan's policies. Her administration has played a key role in promoting the industry, introducing targeted policy reforms aimed at easing operational constraints for the stakeholders in the industry. In the latest, Tanzania's central bank granted tour operators partial exemptions. Tourism operators can use foreign currency for two key purposes. First, for paying on behalf of non-resident tourists for services, and second, for acquiring specialized tourism vehicles from local suppliers. The reforms aim to ease operational bottlenecks for tourism industry workers. The move also underlines a strategic commitment of the government to make tourism a cornerstone of Tanzania's economic development. Tanzania aims to portray itself as a premier global destination. The country wants to leverage its iconic attractions like Mount Kilimanjaro, Serengeti National Park, and Zanzibar's pristine beaches. The East African nation is vying to become one of the top choices for global travelers. It has recently earned accolades at the 2024 World Travel Awards. It was named Africa's leading destination and the world's leading safari destination. Tanzania reels under a high poverty and food insecurity. It highly relies on foreign debt and aid. And in that context, Tanzania's bid to emerge as a global tourist spot could open the door to economic new opportunities. And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.